Welcome to Community of Love Christian Fellowship, where God loves you and we do too. Join us in person on Sundays from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. for 60 minutes of dynamic praise, inspiring fellowship, and life-changing worship. Point your GPS to 557 Cambridge Street in the Alston neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts, 02134. Visit us on the web at colcf.org. That's colcf.org. To learn more about our Friday evening services, our various ministries, and our upcoming special events. Now, let's join the service already in progress.
The topic is the courage to reboot. The courage to reboot. The courage to reboot. Y'all remember back in the day when we had the old computers, and in order to start a computer, you had to put a startup disk in it. You put the startup disk in, and you turn the computer on, and the computer would read the disk, and that would be the starter. And in those old computers, when the computer froze, you had to reboot the computer. Meaning no matter what you were working on, you had to find that old startup disk and stick it back in. That's the floppy disk. And then we went to the 3.5, the 3.5 hard disk, and slide it back and tape was on there. And for the computer, you still, when it froze up on you, you had to reboot. Now we have buttons on the computer that allow you to restart, allow you to force quit. But the point is, you still have to reboot every now and then. Every now and then you're working on something and it freezes up on you. And the only way that you can get back in to work on it some more is to reboot. I'm going to define reboot as a conscious decision to start all over. A conscious decision to start all over. It's a conscious decision to make a hard stop and then to restart. It's a conscious decision to force quit and then to restart. It's a conscious decision to break your stride, to mess up, interrupt your own groove, and then to start all over again. We have a number of scriptures tonight, and I'll get there. But I want to set this up a different way. This is not traditional methodological preaching. This is a word from the Lord. The courage to reboot, it takes courage because in many ways, in order for us to stop what we're doing and stop progress, we have to face our fear. Most of the time, we fear that we've made a mistake. And so rather than correcting the mistake, we'd rather not just stop. We'd rather just continue on the mistake with the hope and the prayer that it'll work itself out. Sometimes we fear the humiliation of being on a path going this way, and then making a hard stop, and then going this way, almost as if you didn't know what you were planning to do. Then sometimes there's a fear of getting caught in a lie, or worse. Sometimes we have to stop because a little white lie ends up growing a little bigger than we can manage. And then sometimes we have to face the fear that we spent our whole life setting this thing up, or we spent all of our money setting this thing up. And so you don't want to stop. You don't want to do a hard stop because of the fear of having to face the facts that everything that you put into are not yielding the direction that you desire to go. Then we fear the uncertainty of it. To push stop and to restart, we don't know if we can get back in the game, if this is our lane, or if we're actually received well. Then there's a lack of stability. You have set everything up based on this foundation, but now you want to move the house to this foundation? And then there's always the fear of will folks still like me? If I really stop faking the funk and come out and be who I am, will folks really still like me? Will they still appreciate me? If I operate at my optimum, will people actually still respect me, or will they now fear me? That's the fear that I have to deal with. for often holding ourselves back from what God has given us. Sometimes we have a tendency to dumb ourselves down in order to play the roles and to play the roles. When God has created a scenario where we're supposed to walk in as the leaders, as the folks who shake up the space. So do we have the courage to forgive ourselves and to move forward? Do we have the courage to acknowledge that God is the one who given us a new direction? That you don't have to explain it to anybody else, because God is the one who says, I moved you from this pond to this lake, or I moved you from this lake to this ocean, or I moved you from this ocean to this vast sea. Do we have the courage to acknowledge that we have a new passion at this phase of our life? We've been defined for all these years as being passionate about these 7 things. But now God has given you 2 more to add on it. Do you have the courage to add those 2 to the 7? Then do we have the courage to accept the new opportunity that's beyond our comfort zone? To walk in a new space, a space that you never imagined. Do we have the courage? Then do we have the courage to accept that you indeed are good, that you indeed are valuable, and that you indeed are worthy of the situation? Do we have the courage to reboot and accept those things? Do we have the courage to say, I'm a leader? I am a leader. I'm a thought leader. I'm a heart leader. I'm an experiential leader. I'm a progressive leader. I'm an innovative leader. I'm a visionary leader. I'm all these things. Do you have the courage to reboot so that you can walk in God's calling for you? Then, do you have the courage to realize and to reconcile that God is with you? Now, why do we have to realize it and reconcile? We have to realize it because God promised that He would never forsake you, never leave you alone, so God is with you. But we have to reconcile it because sometimes we think that our plan, our strategic and optimal plan is being operated on, and God is saying, no, no, no. That's what you think you're doing. But here's the real slip. Here's the real plot. Here's the real narrative. Here's the real line. So the courage to reboot. I'm going to do a little biblical gymnastics here, so put your seatbelt on, but we'll all get to the finish line together. I want to call out of the New Testament old Peter, because I want to show you how God provides the space, the opportunity, the forgiveness, and the courage for us to reboot. I want to start in John 13:36, and I'll read it all to you. But we're at the Passover dinner, the Last Supper. And here Peter's sitting with Jesus and the disciples, and this is where Jesus foretells that, Peter, you're going to deny me. John 13:36-38. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, where are you going? Jesus answered him, where I am going, you cannot follow me, but you will follow after me. Peter said to him, Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. Jesus answered, will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, the rooster will not crow till you have denied me 3 times. So Jesus is foretelling that Peter, as charismatic as Peter was, as diehard as Peter was that disciple who you wanted with you because he was aggressively eager to do whatever the master said to do. But in John 18:15-18, we find these words. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the court of the high priest. But Peter stood outside the door. So the other disciple who was known to the high priest went out and spoke to the servant girl who kept watching the door and brought Peter in. The servant girl at the door said to Peter, You also are not one of the man's disciples, are you? You with them, aren't you? He said, I'm not. No, I'm had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves. Peter also was with them, standing and warming himself. And then we jump down to verse 25. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. Okay, same scene. So they said to him, "You also are not one of his disciples, are you? Are you with him?" And he denied him and said, "I am not." Then one of the servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, told you he was aggressively eager to do what the master said. "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Peter again denied him, and at once a rooster crowed. So we have Jesus saying, "Peter, as much as you love me, you're going to deny me." Peter says, "Oh, no, not me." And then Peter denies him. Then we fast forward to chapter 21, verse 15. This is after the crucifixion. This is after Jesus rises from the tomb. And this is now that Jesus has come back and revealed himself to the disciples. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." He said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Then he said, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go." This he said to show by what kind of death he was going to glorify God. And after saying this, he said, "Follow me." I want to fast forward again to verse 20 to 22. Just love how this plays out. Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following him. This was John, the one who had been reclining at the table close to him, and had said, "Lord, who is that is going to betray him?" When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, "Lord, what about that man? What do you want him to do?" Jesus said to him, "If it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me." And then we fast forward to Acts 1, verses 12 to 15. When they returned to Jerusalem from a mount called Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath-day journey away. And when they had entered, they went up to the upper room, where they were staying. Peter, John, James, Andrew, Philip, and Thomas, Bartholomew, Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas the son of James. All these with one accord were devoting themselves to prayer, together with the women, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his brothers. In those days, Peter stood up among the brothers and sisters. The company of persons was in all about 100. And I'm going to stop here. I read these passages to show you. Peter was one of the 12 disciples, one of the most coveted positions within the Christian church, one of those who walked closely with Jesus. Jesus says that as much as you believe you love me, your own stuff is going to get in the way at some point. Peter denies it and declines it. He says, no, not me. And then Jesus says, you're going to deny me 3 times before a certain point in the morning when the rooster crows. We get to that point, Peter does exactly what Jesus says. And then some of the writers talk about the fact that when Jesus was crucified, the disciples dispersed. Peter actually went off in shame. He went away. Then Jesus arose and came back and revealed himself. And when he revealed himself, Peter didn't know how to approach. So Jesus gives him an opportunity love me 3 times. To reset the 3 denials. Do you love me? Then feed my lambs. Do you love me? Then tend my sheep. Do you love me? Then feed my sheep. Jesus said to Peter, you are valuable. I need you. I need you, 1, because you've fallen and you know the power of my saving grace. I need you, 2, because you have been redeemed according to my name and to do my work. But I need you because, Peter, you have courage. You're going to be a great ambassador for the love of God. You're going to be a great servant of God. You will be one of God's great messengers across the world. You are going to be a vessel by which people are going to be saved. I know that's not what you're playing early in your younger days. I know that as you were walking with Jesus as a disciple, you did not see that you would be the first bishop of Rome. But Peter, it's going to be you. Peter had the courage. So this passage in Acts, when the disciples realized that Jesus is really gone, and they had to muster him, in this scene where they essentially call Judas out, and he goes and they replace Judas. And then the celebration that we'll celebrate on Sunday, the day of Pentecost, Peter rises up as one of the great leaders. Peter rebooted. Peter did not let his shame hold him down. Peter did not let his past hold him back. Peter did not let his last position detour or disrupt his new position. Peter said, Lord, here I am. Send me. I have the courage to reboot. So when you find yourself in a similar place, as you will probably a few times in your life, I pray that you have the courage to make a hard stop. And then spend some time in prayer, meditate, fast, do whatever you need to do to come into alignment with what God has for you. Pause. Don't start too fast. Sit for a minute. Hang back for a second and just vibe on what it is. Get it clear in your soul. Let it run through your blood. And then once you feel that you're in alignment with God, push the go button. Have the courage to push the go button. Don't linger longer than you need to. Because once you push the go button, you're in. And once you're in, God is going to show you things that you never imagined that you would see. Once you're in, God is going to reveal the rest of the plan for you. Once you're in, God is going to say to you, this was the plan the whole time. You just didn't know it. Once you're in, you feel safe in the Master's arms. Once you're in, you feel comforted by God's everlasting touch. Once you're in, you feel your anointing. Once you're in, you recognize your appointing. Once you're in, you actually feel free than you ever felt in your life. Push the go button. Have the courage to reboot. God bless you.